on our end is we're mainly going to go off of PowerPoint and also go off some code that Mike has written just to share with kind of examples that how you can access our API. So. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. That sounds like a great plan. Yeah, it'd be great to just, we can get started. I think an overview of Wyre, all the stuff you mentioned, and then, we'd love to leave some time at the end for questions. But yeah, that sounds great.
Great. So are we waiting on any more participants? And two, do you think it would be advantageous to turn on video?
Yeah, if you want to go for it, we can do the same. Yeah, we can do it here. And then I think if you want to share a screen and go from there, that definitely works.
Cool. Yeah, we'll just share the screen for starters. Hold up. Nice. So how many hackers are on right now?
I see about half a dozen. And then in the past talks we've had, people have sort of come in and out as it runs.
Okay, cool. Why don't we just share one of the pages? Give me a sec.
Go to, sorry guys, one sec.
We got about 30 to 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. When's the next presentation starting, just so we know?
It's not like right after this. We do 2 or 3 a week.
Okay, cool. I'm just trying to kill everything. Okay. Great. How do you do full screen?
I mean, it's pretty much full screen almost. If you press present, yeah, there you go.
Great. So why don't we get started here? All right. Just trying to view, present. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. A little bit of technical difficulties. Okay, great. So I'll give us an overview of Wyre and who's kind of on the call. So I'm here with Mike Dunworth. He's the co-founder and CEO of Wyre, and my name's Thomas, by the way. I am responsible for a lot of partnerships and growth here at Wyre. So Wyre has been in the space actually since 2013. We were a company called Snapcard back in the day. And we're one of the oldest crypto companies. We used to be a Bitcoin merchant processor and a wallet. Then we pivoted to become a cross-border payments company and just basically built up a ton of infrastructure in terms of connecting fiat to crypto. The cross-border payments business actually turns out to be a pretty low margin, high touch business that we didn't really want to stay too long in. So we decided to basically open up all the infrastructure and hard miles that we've done as a public API to other fintech entrepreneurs that want to build on top of our infrastructure. So our core mission here is to really drop the barriers to entry for fintech entrepreneurs, right? There's a lot of issues that in fintech. The classic example I think of is it took the CEO of Square and Square to go to market. It took them about 18 months, whereas they wrote the code in about 2 months, right? So they had the product ready to go 2 months, but actually getting the regulatory opinion from the lawyers, getting the right licensing structure in place, doing payment processing, liquidity, all those different modules that are so essential in the fintech stack just takes so long to construct, and we want to just deliver that in like a very holistic API to end users. So we actually interface with all sorts of different companies, right? Whether it's traditional banks, fintech, payment companies, or two hackers in a garage, and various DEXs and dApps. And as a company, we've actually decided to focus on crypto companies. So we're still open for business on the traditional side, but right now we're very focused on very like crypto native efforts, whether it's having something that's compatible on Web3 or being very forward on with ENS or other kind of crypto native initiatives. We're hoping that'll be like a long-term driver for success in the company. So as I mentioned, fintech's super hard to go to market. All sorts of issues and nuances and different modules need to build out. Primarily, I would sort it into a few categories, right? KYC, AML, and verification are top of mind, especially here in the US. I think if you go to Asia, it's kind of less of a concern, but going to market in the US, it's pretty much a requirement. Payment processing, whether that's accepting wires, ACH, credit cards, debit cards, that's also something that's very hard for fintech entrepreneurs, and that's something our API enables. The liquidity in between crypto and fiat, right? So going from that payment processing method receive, it's one thing to receive the US dollars, but it's another thing to convert it into DAI or Ethereum, and we want to facilitate all of that as well. Yeah, so liquidity, payment processing, compliance. We offer that all up via an API or an SDK, right? So the SDK and the API are quite similar, but the SDK is like kind of a higher level construction. So the SDK is really built on top of our API, and it's more of like our out-of-the-box solution, right? Whereas the API is just fully white labeled. An end partner can control the entire user experience and user interface, whereas the SDK is going to have the Wyre branding on it. Think of it as kind of like a Stripe for crypto button, right? So you would just drag and drop, like you would just paste a script into your HTML, and it's hosted on our servers, and so it's very off the shelf. It's very easy to implement, and it's probably something that the hackers are leaning towards if you're trying to use us for just going to market really quickly. So we'll definitely do a demonstration of both. Yeah, so all of this ties into our on-chain compliance initiative. So one nifty little thing we're doing to keep this all on-chain is we actually print a ERC-721 token to Ethereum addresses that are verified, right? So when we go through the demo for the SDK, you'll notice that the Ethereum addresses, like you enter in a lot of info that's linked to an Ethereum address. You probably do that via MetaMask or some Ethereum wallet. Once you've done the entire verification process, we deposit this token in there via our smart contract, and that token becomes like your passport to DeFi. So if a partner like Radar Relay, for example, just a loose example, implements the widget, and their users go through this KYC AML verification process, when they go to CryptoKitties and want to use fiat to interact with CryptoKitties, they wouldn't need to go onboard all over again, right? So we're trying to solve that classic issue of just like data just being tossed around from platform to platform. We can keep this all on chain, right? The 721 allows us to know who's behind the address because there's an imprint of their Wyre ID essentially, and their Wyre ID is tied to their identity and all their payment methods, right? So the wires and ACH and debit cards that are linked to that certain user. So this is something that's a little nifty about kind of what differentiates us. Like I mentioned, the SDK is the off-the-shelf implementation. Now's a good time as ever to demo the SDK. Let me shift my sharing to another screen. You know what? Let's open up a new tab. Second.
Can you share mine?
Yeah, it could be easier. Hold on. Not sure.
Yeah. Sorry guys. Okay.
Oh, I could get it. Okay, I just got the demo going. Cool, thanks for bearing with us there. How does that look on your end, Mike?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool, so the SDK is of course live and ready to go, and this is what it looks like when it's completely live, right? I have my MetaMask and I have this yes token in there, which is their Wyre's verification token. So this button that's hosted here, inspect it and see the button and the script here for it, right? And that's all in our docs. But clicking on this button, and I've already been verified, so it should recognize my MetaMask signature on our systems, and it's just an on-ramp, right? You can fund the wallet with a checking account that's already linked to it, and fund it, directly into DAI or Ethereum. We also support Bitcoin, but that's not applicable here. And sorry, that's a really expensive DAI.
It's testnet. The testnet prices. DAI is hard pegged on mainnet. It's hard pegged 1-to-1. So basically, with our order books, we've aggregated all the order books and all the liquidity for DAI, whether that's OTC markets or whether that's actual exchanges. So if you go from USD into DAI, basically you can hit like a 100K order or a 50K order depending on your account limits, and you're going to have 1-to-1, which is probably a really good starting point.
It's honestly one of the better, best deals, I would say. We maintain the hard peg of DAI 1-to-1, right, as Mike mentioned, and it's just 25 basis points, right, 0.25%. That's taken off the top. You can see that right there, and you click fund, and as soon as that wire or ACH clears the traditional banking rails, we've already bought that DAI for that user in the back end, and once that bank wire clears our system, then the DAI would be directly deposited into the MetaMask address that was connected, right? So that's what a complete on-ramp looks like, and just to demonstrate what an onboarding process looks like, because an onboarding process is really the prerequisite for getting the fiat on and off ramps.
Do you want to show them when you go to, let's say, for example, ren.exchange, because you've already been verified. The idea, guys, is that essentially what you've got is we don't want people that don't know about compliance and don't know about regulatory, change to mainnet. People that don't know about that stuff, we don't want them to have to worry about it. So, CoinList, a 0x relayer, they might not want to become, if you want to build let's say a compliant relayer, you are either going to have to go fork out 50K to Perkins Coie and give them a whole bunch of money, wait 6 months for a opinion, or you can actually utilize us where we're going to provide this insulation between, handling the compliance and all that sort of stuff. So I think the idea is that we can help teams be compliant so that they can capture the US market, starting out with the US market, which is obviously a very big market, but it's extremely costly to penetrate that market. It costs so much money. And also, you guys building stuff, you want to be able to go to sleep at night and not sleep with one eye open, like, oh no, is that a security? Is that this? Are these people verified? Is this money laundering? All this kind of stuff. That's where, we try and help insulate that away from you guys, so that you can just focus on building awesome experiences, instead of having this kind of do the dirty, heavy lifting under the hood.
Okay, so I am just going to go through the flow because it's actually a great demonstration of, first of all, the widget, but the widget's built on top of our API, right? So if you wanted to completely control the user experience and user interface, you could do that. And these are the fields that are required as a minimum by FinCEN, right? So like this is the bare, sorry, it's not taking the date. This is the bare minimum that is required by FinCEN to do money transmission.
Click on 2017.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Let's do 1995. That should hopefully work. There we go. So there's no kind of way getting around collecting all of this data because, like I mentioned, it's really just the minimum as by FinCEN. Go. Sorry, my spelling's terrible. Doesn't really matter. Okay. It's going to ask for passport ID. Let's just find something. Cool. So we do find social security matches in public databases often. So we wouldn't need to, this field is often skipped in the production environment, but I was entering in fake info, so we didn't find anything. And this is a really cool part. Like we actually have a native Plaid integration, which, and you should write these credentials down. It's user good, pass underscore good, right, Mike? Yep. And that will link your bank account basically to your Ethereum address and your Wyre ID. Hold up. User good pass. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'll verify you on the back end because you're on mainnet. So,
oh, I'm on mainnet, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe you want to go and use the token to like sort of authenticate with another service provider.
Yeah.
Instead, so if you like, for example, I just asked the video. By the way, guys, if you got any questions, just like ping us directly on what's super valuable to listen to. But we put together a resource that I dropped into the chat room as well, so you guys can dig through that in your own time. But it's literally a step-by-step sort of Bible, and I'll go complete guide top to bottom. I'll go through that in a sec with everyone as well. Let me get you up and running, Thomas.
We could probably get there on the demo also. Should we just try this?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Okay. Sorry about that. We're just going to start over here on the demo because that was on mainnet. So it's not letting me do that. Okay, so this should work. Cool, so it's recognized your checking and savings account. You can link one of them. So that's sort of how you add a payment method, provide a signature at the end. And then send some sort of secret code.
Oh yeah, you're gonna verify your phone. Yeah.
All right. Cool. It's also gone to my email. Let me just verify that real quick. All right, should be verified.
I just want to check who is the other person running this. Regan. Regan, can you hear us? I just wanted to ask if there's any specifics like that you wanted us to cover that would add the most value. I've dropped in like a resource there, which I put together, covers like a lot of stuff with the API, but is there any specifics that you look at?
Yeah, I mean, no, this is super helpful so far. I'm happy to open it up to anyone in any of the participants in the Zoom chat. I think just one thing would be cool to give context would be like any examples of like relayers or any other products, you know, how people are using the on-chain compliance product right now. Yeah. And sort of what you obviously use cases you see for it as well.
Yep. Sure. No worries. Hey, Thomas, do you want to let me share my screen?
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and just show you the example with Ren.
Yeah. I'm going to stop sharing. Mike's going to start sharing. Cool. But that was the entire demo. And then we'll go through some partners as well.
Yeah.
And we'll also help you guys figure out how to get test accounts and things like that, and how to actually use this in the hackathon. I think that's probably one of the most important parts.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, okay, guys. So one thing I put in, let me just make sure of it. I put it in the channel for you guys. It is this link that you should be able to see. It's basically how to integrate. It was written by one of our partners. Integrating the whitelist, which is our on-chain KYC, into a 0x exchange. So it talks about referencing the relay kits and all that. So this would be a really handy thing just to get up and running if you wanted to sort of add a whitelist so that, you know, you can feel a lot more confident with the customers you're serving if you're not regulated or you're not doing that whole conversation yet. But you want to be able to cater to, you know, bigger customers doing larger trades and things like that. Whether that's, you know, the Cumberlands and the Junks of the world, or, you know, the OTC desks and stuff. A lot of their reluctancy is, you know, with working and providing liquidity to these markets comes from them not being able to know their counterparty. So it doesn't mean that they need to know every single thing about their counterparty, but they just need to know that someone knows. And they don't do that by choice. It's not like they really enjoy, you know, knowing every single person and holding all this personal information. Because we're regulated, we are obligated to do. So it's just, unfortunately, it's just par for the course right now. And so, you know, what we look at is innovative ways that can be sort of letting us tick the boxes in terms of, great, we know we're not doing the wrong thing by FinCEN, but also letting everyone have access to that same sort of level of confidence without obviously, you know, having your customers or, you know, any customers have to upload their sensitive information, you know, 4 times across 4 different exchange platforms. Super basic example, you know, just off the top of my head, I know that Ren is Republic Protocol, and they've looked at doing stuff with 0x protocol. The example I gave was for 0x, but just for this live example, I'm just going to click on it because I have open. So I'm going to pick a non-verified wallet, and Renex isn't verified in North America, so they need to find a way to screen people essentially, so that in a dark pool, when you're doing OTC trading, the people that use this platform, if they wanted to do $50,000, $100,000 orders, and they're, let's say, Circle's OTC desk, they need to feel confident to some extent that they're trading with some verified counterparty. So in this case, I have to go through the bells and hoops that Thomas just went through. But if I change my wallet over to let's say a verified account, theoretically, I hope this does not call me a liar, but theoretically, if I click this, it's going to be looking on chain, and it's going to be looking up the wallet that is making the request to authenticate via Web3. And if that wallet is currently, has an ERC-721 token, great, pass them through and they can start trading. And so for them on their side, it's almost like 10 lines of code, super basic implementation, but it's just like a filter. So if they are, trying to capture, a specific market, obviously we're talking about the US in this example, they can feel confident that this person has been through a registration process with a North American MSP. So, it's basically us putting our hand up and saying, yeah, we're going to do our job and we're accountable. And we can revoke this token that we issued. The only people that can touch this token are the token holder or Wyre. So Wyre, the reason why we hold the reason why we can actually touch the token is only because if your passport, like if a customer's passport expires or some sort of verification document, we need to be able to revoke that so that other partners that are looking for this lens of truth to the token holders, we need a way to say they're not currently, it's not accurate to say that this person is verified by Wyre because their passport expired 3 days, so we've revoked their token. And if you look on chain, like this is just the address that I did for the example, I should see some sort of identifier, which helps, it helps Wyre basically. So you'll see there's an ACID that we put on chain, and that is basically, so when it does come time to the regulatory compliance and the reporting part of stuff, we can't bullshit them and say, oh, their account ID is this. It's been on chain, it's been there for 9 months, we did it, we were upholding our specific policies. I know this stuff can kind of get really boring really quickly, guys. And that's kind of the whole point of what we do as a company, is so that you guys don't have to handle all the boring stuff, but you can build amazing products. So if I look at CoinList, for example, CoinList has to screen, user and all these users to see, are they accredited investors? Are they not accredited investors? All these kind of different variables that come into play. And that costs them a lot of time and money, but they're exceptionally good at it. And so what you have is this barrier to entry that is almost sort of, a capital inefficiency. So for new entrepreneurs to take advantage of that, it'd be awesome for you guys to be able to know that someone is an accredited investor, because CoinList has done that verification, have been through that process, for them. And CoinList is going to have to update that accreditation status. If you guys are familiar and been through the process, you have to do these refreshes, basically. You don't get verified once and then just, come back 20 years later and do it. You don't have to do it again. So I think I know I've been rambling for a bit, guys. I might just stop and see, just check in if there's any other questions or any thoughts, or is this on track with helpful stuff that you guys want to hear more of, or do you think I should dive into some more practical applications?
One question that I had is, how do you moderate which exchanges and OTC desks that Wyre uses to aggregate liquidity for?
Okay, good question. Well, firstly, it's going to be, one, do we work with them already? Two, are they reputable? How we measure I think basically what we do is we measure counterparty risk. Does that make sense? In terms of like understanding, if we're holding a lot of assets and we're trading a lot of assets, we don't want to have to, I put this into a blog post, which I'll paste in the lounge for you guys. We don't want to have to basically take any additional risk. Crypto is risky enough, let alone, exploring how other parties can essentially run away with your money. So it's going to come down to essentially 5 things. One, what is their pricing like? Typically, if you see huge deltas in their pricing versus other people's pricing, that's going to mean 2 things. One, there is something fishy going on. Or 2, there is some sort of arbitrage opportunity, whether that's regulatory or liquidity arbitrage. The second is obviously you research the founders and the team, like who's behind the project and any sort of information you can find. Investors and funding. Now, we don't typically correlate investors and funding to the most trustworthy OTC desk, but it definitely helps because a lot of people don't deploy capital into projects if they're not going to be able to scale and they're going to be regulated, whether that's from a security standpoint or a compliance standpoint. Geography, this is a really big one. We don't pick a massive OTC trade desk that's based in the middle of Iran because we're unable to service Iran as a market on the sanctions list. We also consider, are they an OTC trade desk that is in the middle of, a country that provides no regulatory barriers to entry? If that happens, then how do we know who's being responsible with customer funds, who's not being responsible? So, I hate to sort of numb up the compliance conversation, but I know that a big part of this whole hackathon is about it. And I think like the geography, the more strict it is, the more that someone is going to get basically, they're going to get hit with the stick if they're acting inappropriately with customer assets and stuff.
Yep. And we'll also do a review of their KYC AML program, right? If we need to know who they're trading against and that their program's up to snuff and where that money's sort of been. I think that's something to add there.
Yeah, and we look at, exactly. Trade strategies as well. So what are people doing? How are they trading? Are they just like trying to fudge their numbers through wash trading? Are they, providing a lot of integrity and transparency? I think those, typically it's going to come down to things like that. Geography, sort of like a track record. And obviously one of the big things is going to be slippage, like the true depth to an order book. If you're trying to measure, for the people out there building relay kits and, building out relays and all that, you guys should be measuring the success of your platform by the slippage that it's taking, because that's pretty much the number one bearing for if I put a $100,000 order of X onto my exchange, how much does it slip? We see these, there's exchanges that are, based offshore and they're doing hundreds of millions of, dollars in trades per day, but people are questioning, are the numbers real? Are they fake? There's no fees. And you kind of get into this sort of, and it basically becomes a trust issue almost. But I'm not sure, is that helpful, Regan, on your side?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I think another question I had is there any way to protect privacy if someone is using, the ERC 721 token to basically as their passport to decentralized finance?
Yes. So there's a few things. So, firstly, the on-chain verification implementation that we did that's live, we sort of focused that on a very limited subset of accounts. Now, what is public information is that wallet has a token. It's completely opt-in for the end user, so we don't force people to have it, which is super important. Preserving privacy, if anyone's interested, we have an EIP, an ERC proposal, basically label it ERC DeFi, and that's to make it a more extensible implementation with more privacy preservation. So at the moment, the privacy compromise is that someone knows that address is verified. They don't know any information behind the scenes about it, but they do know that address is verified. So
I can give an address that is completely unrelated to my own. I can spin up a new one if I wanted to. But I mean, people tend to just sort of click whatever's easiest for them. But you know, definitely being privacy conscious. Our contract upgrades that we're rolling out in the next month, we've just been getting sort of reviewed from different banking partners and exchange partners and stuff like that. So you can take a look at that, but just being conscious of this stuff, it's a huge leap forward in privacy and sensitive information. But definitely, you know, you want to be mindful of this stuff. Anything on chain is on chain forever. So, you know, if there's an address that you don't want to know has been verified or something like that, then you can take that into account when you're getting the token issued. Additionally, you can always call us and we revoke the token, but it obviously does still say the history on chain that did get a token at one point and it's been revoked.
Cool. Any other questions? I think we should probably go through this hackathon resource guide.
Yeah.
Mike, if you want to pull that up on your computer.
Yeah, sweet.
So this is just to help you guys implement this at the hackathon or, you know, whatever side project you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Get yourself set up in our test environment, test keys, things like that, and get you hooked up with our API documentation, and walk you through, you know, authenticating your first API request.
Yeah, so basically this example, guys, is this is a white label one. So, I mean, we've got the widget and things like that, which I put examples here as well. So if you wanted to, you know, drag and drop a JavaScript snippet in so that it opens, it's sort of similar to, you know, what Thomas showed. But we do give, you know, this is all white labelable in the sense that you can create an account. So in this example, what I've gone ahead and done is I'll create an account and compliantly verify it against the standard of an MSB. I'm going to connect their bank account to the account I just created. So basically, I create the user's account. I get them all verified from the AML and KYC perspective, so I can feel confident about the compliance. Then I'm going to connect their bank account, and then I'm going to debit their bank account $100 and credit it to their non-custodial wallet. And that's a really important thing, I think, in preserving sort of the way that the ecosystem is progressing, is we wanted to make sure that while we're a middleman to an extent, we know that that's just part of, you know, the evolution of the technology. You know, we went from directly centralized exchanges and products, now we're evolving into more of these decentralized products. There still needs to be someone basically bridging that gap to an extent, and we see it as a sort of a temporary situation, but that's largely what the compliance token helps out with. So we can pull ACH from the customer's bank account or your customer if you're an exchange, for example, and debit directly into their non-custodial wallet. So it's not like it goes from their bank to Wyre, Wyre holds it, does whatever we want, and then makes them log in. It's like a straight shot right from their bank account to their MetaMask, and then obviously converting funds between various currencies. And to be honest, I tried to spell it out as much as humanly possible for everyone. Basically, I know this stuff is sort of like, you know, somewhat, it's a bit foreign to a lot of things and there's a lot of stuff involved, but honestly, guys, it's so basic. If you do have trouble, feel free to leave like a comment on it, but essentially it's like fiat on and off ramps in a box. You know, we're regulated in North America, Hong Kong, Australia, and shortly other jurisdictions. But the idea is like, you guys have got really great ideas. Everyone is waiting for those to sort of come to market, but you know, it's going to be very challenging for the industry to evolve in the right direction and the right pace if we're all having to do 6 months of waiting for an account with this bank partner, or you know, waiting on a legal opinion on whether or not we can operate in this market and stuff. Like, it's really challenging. So yeah, just wanted to be conscious of that. And obviously everyone is entitled to completely go and do it themselves, which we also work with teams that want to do that. But just to know that there are ways that you can sort of get to market and validate a product or an idea without having to pour a ton of compliance resources into it. Another thing that's actually really cool, guys, we've got the widget on-ramp, which Thomas showed for MetaMask. Obviously, people are building amazing products. You've got all these collectibles, you've got games. We want to make sure that the partners that work with us aren't restricted to sort of the echo chamber of crypto, and they get to actually go, if I've got a game, I don't want to limit myself to, the 32 million crypto users. I want to be targeting 500 million people like on planet Earth. So if I'm making a collectible, that should essentially have the same target or total addressable market as something like Pokemon. So we've got a widget on ramp for non-Web3, which basically means if the visitor does not have Web3, you are still able to push them through and make it basically a reusable flow for that person, so that basically it's literally like the Web3 experience without the Web3. And this means you can have like privacy preservation through incognito browsers, private browsing, iOS, no downloading of additional apps and things like that. So definitely, basically, there's 3 ways to go about it, depending on how much time. Widget on-ramp with Web3, widget on-ramp without Web3, which basically defaults back to Web3 if it's evident. And then obviously the white label API. So we give you the chance to spin up accounts for people. And I mean, one of the things I would suggest to people, and I do tell this to teams, there's a very specific motivator for making the widget try and appear like a third-party product. It's because teams that go to market, they can white label services, but then that starts pointing more risk towards a new team in fintech that, you might be at a hackathon or something. You might be less insulated from risk when it looks all like your branding and all that kind of stuff. So we offer that, but we just want people to be mindful that sometimes, there was a deliberate step for us to make that widget so that it looks like, this is a third-party service that is not XYZ list relay or, 0x relay or whatever it is.
Just so there's a layer of separation between the money transmission and the technology that you guys are providing.
Yep, exactly. So let me just, and I put into, there's literally integrating the whitelist from the KYC stuff. There's a 4-step process that one of our partners did. There's a couple of these floating around, but this is the most recent one that I saw. So if you wanted to take a look, I've pasted that in for you guys to check out as well. So
yeah, great. Thanks, Mike. Any other questions, guys?
Crickets.
No, this was super comprehensive and super helpful. If anyone pings us with questions, we'll follow up, pass them your way. But really appreciate you guys giving an overview here. Thanks again for taking the time.
Sweet. No worries, guys. Thanks for having us. And I put all the resources there. Buzz us if you've got any issues. We're here to help or point you in the right direction if it's not with us. There's a ton of really great resources. And thanks for CoinList and 0x putting on this sort of stuff. Hope everyone builds awesome stuff.
Yeah, thanks again, guys, for the opportunity here.
Thanks.
Later.
Thank you.